we're just diving back into things, and this is something that was on my heart all over Christmas break, and with the new year, you know, the cliche, like, new year, new me, I hate that phrase so much, but training to run, and we're talking about, how all of us are running somewhere. We're all running towards something. Your goal, or whatever's the most important thing in your life, whatever's on the throne of your life, whether it be school, your grades, a significant other, church, like whatever it is, you're running towards it. Whether some of us are running like this, and some of us are like actually going at a good pace, and it changes. Sometimes we just fall in some holes during the run. But this is training to run. So we're going to talk about our passage. Oh my gosh, actually, that's so exciting. So our theme passage for this series is 1 Corinthians 9, 24 through 27, or 25 through 27. And in just some context, in Corinthians, Paul, who was a disciple of Christ, is writing to the Corinthians. And it's the name, fun fact. That's so cool. 1 Corinthians. Wow, it's one of two guys. That's why there's a one. But in this passage, he's talking about self-control and discipline and things like that. And so I love this analogy that he gives. He gives, every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. And I love this analogy that he gives because he's talking about an athlete, and this time he was talking about their athletes, they could get like gold trophies or anything like that. They got wreaths that they would put on their head like a little crown. They would just walk out and be like, oh my gosh, he won. And that was a really valued thing. It was a big thing. But the wreath, obviously, it's made of real leaves and it would perish. But hopefully, if you're running towards a goal, hopefully that goal is Christ. But regardless of what it is, it's something that you value and it's imperishable. It's not something that fades away. Especially if it's Christ. Christ is always, like, he's not going to fade away. And I love, he says, so I do not run aimlessly. I do not run aimlessly. Sometimes I feel like I'm running aimlessly. I'm very goal-oriented, bless you. I'm very goal-oriented, like I need to have a goal in my life or else I just kind of flop around everywhere, not really doing anything, just kind of existing in space. And we all have those moments where we're just existing. We're not really living, we're just existing. And that's something we always want to avoid because you're always making an impact. No matter where you are or what you do, that can be a scary thing or an encouraging thing, but you're always, always, always making an impact on other people's lives around you. Because like, even if I'm just saying like, hey Sarah, what's up? And that's the only thing I say, I made an impact on Sarah's day. Maybe positive, maybe negative. And so when we're running aimlessly, we have no concept of what kind of impact we're making. But if you're running towards a goal and you're running with training and you're thinking about what you're doing, then everything you do should be aligned towards that goal. And so this is encouraging to me because he's talking about training your body, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So he's talking about the goals he puts in his life. He disciplines his body and keeps it under control. So yes, physical goals, because this is an athlete analogy, so yeah, physical goals. And also like, oh, I want to read more, I want to smile at people more. Solid. So like part of discipline is getting your textbooks for class and making sure that you're prepared to be in class that day. Making sure, in the same way in the Christian walk, an example would be doing your quiet time that day to make sure that you're prepared to live as a Christ follower that day. And things like that. Lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Hey, she's back there. But I myself should be disqualified. So what he's saying there is this is something he has to put into practice, because if he's going to tell the Corinthians about this, obviously Paul can't be over there doing nothing, just being a couch potato all day, doing absolutely nothing with his life or his existence, but be over here like, Corinthians, y'all better get it together. No, he has to practice what he preaches. I love that phrase. So an example of this in my own life is I'm really big on New Year's. If you know anything about me, I love New Year's. New Year's is great. It's like my second favorite holiday. December is great because it's Christmas, then New Year's. I think that's the best thing on earth. And so for New Year's last year, I sit down the week before New Year's. I sit down about 3 or 4 times, and I form goals for the new year. And I know, like, New Year's resolution, that's so cliche. They last, like, if you're really great, you'll make it till Valentine's Day, and then you just kind of fade out, and yeah. Or some of you will make it towards fall with your exercise goals, and then it gets cold, and then you're done, and I get that. We all get there. But last year, my New Year's resolutions, I had 12 of them, and guys, there are 12 months in a year. That was so exciting to me. And so I focused on one a month, and that was really important to me. And some of them were like spiritual, like love louder and stuff like that. That was January's. And then some of them were just really practical things, like bring your camera. I love photography, and I would get so focused on routine that I would forget to do things I enjoyed. So bring your camera. Goals are sitting down and saying, all right, what's in my life and what's not in my life that I want to be in my life? Because you're sitting down and you're saying, here's something I want more than anything. Like, here's something I'm striving towards. And then we get into habits. And your habits are what you do on a daily basis. Google defines a habit as good old Google. It defines a regular tendency or practice, especially that is hard to give up. I love that even Google recognized, especially that is hard to give up. Habits shape your day. We all have habits, and sometimes they're really small things. Maybe you're a leg shaker. When you sit, you're someone who bounces their knee. You bounce your knee. Alyssa just stopped. A lot of us do that. Maybe you're a pin clicker. There are always the pin clickers. There are the pencil tappers. You know, we love that. Your habit is always chewing gum when you're taking a test. There are a lot of people like that. Maybe you always put your hair up when you're taking a test. I know Carson, you have to put your hair up.
Yeah, so much this block right here.
And then there are the more serious habits that we have, like your morning routine. Your morning routine, a lot of people have put a lot of value on their morning routine. Maybe your morning routine is to wake up at 8:10, and that's a routine. Maybe you're just not a morning person. Maybe your morning routine is to wake up before 6:30 or something like that, so that you have like a whole day before school. And that's an important thing to people. Your routine when you get home from school, those are habits that you pick up. And then you get into the super deep habits, like watching Netflix for 3 hours before you go to bed.
What about 4?
What about 4? Yeah, maybe you watch Netflix for, let's say, an hour plus before you go to bed. Or YouTube, because those 2-minute videos, they add up quick. Trust me, I know. Maybe you're a social media person. You scroll through social media before you go to bed. Maybe you're one of those blessed people who reads a book before they go to bed, or something like that. We all have different habits, some of which impact us a lot more than others. You can tell usually by looking at someone who watches Netflix 3 hours before they went to school. You can tell who went to bed at 2 a.m. on a regular basis that week. So those are more serious habits that we incorporate into our life. And a lot of times habits are just regular things that we pick up along the way, and we're like, oh yeah, this is just something I do, and we don't sit down and think about our habits very often, unless there's something like life-altering, or they end up really affecting your friends or family. Very rarely do you sit down and think about the fact that you watched Netflix that night, or you tapped a pencil during the test. But habits form your entire day. Our entire day is made up of habits. For me, I woke up this morning, I did my morning routine. My morning routine is divided into 30-minute segments. I wake up at 6:30. I have 30 minutes where I sit, I write, I spend time with the Lord. That sounds really spiritual. Half the time I'm half asleep, don't even worry. Then I get ready, and then I go downstairs and eat breakfast with my mom, and then I drive to school, and I sit in my car for 10 minutes in the morning, because I get here at 8 o'clock, and I sit here, and I just kind of breathe for a minute and socially prepare myself to see people. And that's my morning routine. And then I go to school, and I go home, and I get home, and I usually get a snack because food is great, and talk to my mom for a while, and then I do my homework possibly, and then we do whatever. We have like 2.5 hours of just time to like do stuff, sometimes depending on how much homework or sleep or whatever else is going on Netflix. But and that's my day. That's my day 5 out of 7 days a week, 52 weeks in a year, I believe. 52 weeks in a year. Like, that's what I do. And all of those were just tiny little habits, right? But then they made up a whole day. And then they made up 5 days out of a week. And then we're in school for what? We're 7 to 8 hours, and about like what, 9 or 8 months out of a year. And that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time I dictated to habits. And a lot of times we forget to sit down and think about what those habits are because they add up so quickly. And so we're talking about a lot of this series, Training to Run, is talking about your habits, talking about what are you actually doing. And today I just want to compel you to think about what you're doing. Think about your habits. Some of them are great. You're going to be super proud of yourself for some of them. And then some of them, I sat down and started thinking, you know, I really assessed this year, what am I doing in my life that's not beneficial? Not even necessarily bad. It's not inherently bad to watch YouTube for 2 hours on my bed. Like, that's not inherently bad, but it's not really beneficial to me. It doesn't get me where I need to go. Nowhere in YouTube does it point me towards my goals. And I really sat down and thought about that and came up with some New Year's resolutions for this year. And my New Year's resolutions this year are all about habits. For example, I want to get together twice a month with friends. And I figured, like, that's a really sad goal to be like, twice a month I'm gonna see people, guys. No, but like, I realized how little time I dedicate in my life to pouring into the people I love the most and like letting them pour into me. And I hate that. Like, I hate that I get so busy that the most important people in my life I don't see. And then some of them are like, once a month I want to do some sort of artsy thing because I like being artsy. It makes me feel good and I enjoy it. And these are just practical things that I love doing and that benefit me and like point me towards my goals that somewhere along the way I let slip out of my life. And I didn't think about that for a long time. And there are little things too that I want to weed out of my life. Scientifically, it takes about 3 weeks to build up a habit. It takes 3 weeks, that's 21 days, and it takes that amount of time to build a solid habit. So like, think about the 3rd week of school, like the 3rd week of a new semester of school. That's about the week where it's hard for you to remember when you weren't in school. Like, remember vividly you weren't in school. It's hard for you, like, you're engaged in your classes and your units at that point. You know where your classes are. You probably have a schedule for how you get to each class. Like, the 3rd week of school is usually when that happens. It's the same with any habit. It's really hard to sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna do this every day for 3 weeks, but once you get past that 3-week mark, you have a new habit in your life. And sometimes that's a really scary, bad thing because it takes that much time to have a new habit in your life. And sometimes that's an awesome thing because something you want to weed out of your life, it's much more effective rather than just saying, I'm gonna stop doing this. I'm just gonna stop eating unhealthy. I'm gonna stop, this is my example for the day apparently, watching Netflix for 3 hours every night. Things like that. It's really easy to say that and really hard to do. It's always going to be a lot easier to assess what you're doing and decide what you're going to do instead. Okay.
Walk every day. We feel you getting it.
But it's always going to be easier to assess what you want to change in your life and change it rather than just take it out. Because then you have all that extra time before bed. What are you going to do instead? Then you have all that extra time at that point. And we're like, yay, extra time, but then we just fill it up with more crap and then you have a new bad habit. And so that's kind of the premise of today's like message and everything like that is assess your habits. Think about what you're doing. Think about your thoughts. Think about the things you regularly think about. That sounds weird, like thinkception, but like, what are you normally thinking about? If you're stressed out a lot, what normally do you think about that makes you stressed out? If you're always tired, what normally do you do? Because you'll find that literally everything is centered around your habits. So that's your kind of challenge for the week. We're doing those now, fun fact. That's your challenge for the week. Think about your habits. Think about what you're doing with your time. And think about what you want to change because it might not be beneficial.